The massive doors of the throne room opened with a sound like thunder. Hannah Park walked forward, her chains making soft clicking sounds with each step. The metal was cold against her wrists, but she kept her head high. Around her, the alien court watched with hungry eyes. The throne room was bigger than 3 football fields. Red crystals grew from the walls, casting bloody light across everything. Weapons from 1,000 dead worlds hung like trophies. Plasma, rifles that once protected peaceful colonies. Laser cannons that defended mining stations. Energy shields that failed to save entire planets. Emperor Gulthak sat on his crimson throne at the far end. He was 12 feet tall with purple skin that looked like old leather, 4 arms ending in claws that could crush steel. His eyes glowed yellow in the red light. This was the being who had burned half the galaxy. Hannah had seen the videos. Whole. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. Children crying for parents who would never come home. Earth had fought for 3 years against his empire, 3 years of impossible odds and desperate battles. Now it was over. The guard stopped her 50 feet from the throne. The Emperor leaned forward, studying her like a bug under a microscope. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. So, this is what remains of Earth's leadership. He gestured with one massive hand. 1 small female in chains. How the mighty have fallen. The court laughed. Hundreds of alien voices making cruel sounds. Hannah said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence could be its own kind of weapon. I have conquered over 2,000 worlds, Gulthak continued. Each one thought they were special. Each one believed they could resist the inevitable. Your Earth was no different, except for one thing. He stood up from his throne. Even at this distance, Hannah could feel the heat coming off his body. The smell of sulfur and burnt metal. You lasted longer than you should have. Much longer. My generals tell me Earth should have fallen in weeks, not years. Your technology is primitive, your ships are slow, your weapons are weak. Yet somehow, you kept fighting. The Emperor began walking down the steps from his throne. Each footstep echoed through the chamber like a drum beat. There must be something, some secret weapon, some hidden strength. My spies found nothing. My scientists detected nothing. But something allowed your pathetic species to hold out against my infinite might. He stopped 10 feet away from her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Scars covered his arms from 1,000 battles. His claws had dried blood under them. But Hannah looked right into his glowing eyes without flinching. I have decided to be merciful, Gulthak said. Tell me about this secret weapon, and I will make your people's slavery gentle. They will work in my mines, but they will eat well. They will serve my empire, but their children will live. Refuse, and I will make Earth a monument to suffering. Behind, the Emperor, his generals nodded, General Vex, who had glassed the moon colonies, Commander Thork, who had led the attack on the orbital stations, Admiral Gornex, whose fleet had broken Earth's final defense line. They all wanted to know how humanity had lasted so long. Your Majesty is wise and powerful, Hannah said. Her voice was calm and clear. I will tell you about our weapon. The Emperor smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. Excellent. I knew you would see reason. What is this weapon? Where is it hidden? How does it work? It was taken from me when I was captured. Hannah said, If your Majesty would allow me to have my personal items back, I can show you. Gulthak waved a hand. A guard brought forward a small metal box. Inside were Hannah's few belongings. A photo of her family. A small cross on a chain. A pair of reading glasses. And at the bottom, a simple black pen. Hannah picked up the pen and held it up. The court fell silent. Some of the aliens leaned forward, trying to see what made this small object special. Others looked confused. This, Goltak's voice, was flat. This is your secret weapon? Yes, Your Majesty. The silence stretched for long seconds. Then someone in the court started laughing. The sound spread like wildfire. Soon hundreds of aliens were laughing, pointing at the small human with her tiny pen. A writing instrument? General Vex stepped forward. You mock us, human. My ancestors stopped using such primitive tools before your son was born. This pen has no energy signature, Commander Thork added. No weapons capability, no technological components of any value. It is nothing but plastic and ink. Goltak raised a hand, and the laughter stopped instantly. He studied Hana's face carefully. You are not joking. You truly believe this pen is a weapon? I know it is, Your Majesty. Explain. Hana held the pen up higher. This pen has conquered more worlds than your entire fleet. It has toppled more kings than your greatest generals. It has started more revolutions than any gun or bomb or battleship. Impossible. Give me one chance to prove it, Hana said. One solar cycle. 24 of your hours. Let me use your empire's communication systems. If this pen can create more chaos in your realm than your armies created in their last campaign, then you release Earth and give humanity a seat on your council. The throne room exploded with angry voices. The generals shouted insults. The court members hissed and growled. But Goltak held up his hand again, and silence returned. And if you fail, then humanity serves your empire for 1,000 generations. No resistance, no rebellion. Complete obedience. Goltak's eyes glowed brighter. You would bet your entire species on this pen? Yes. The Emperor walked in a slow circle around her. His claws clicked on the stone floor. Finally, he returned to face her. You fascinate me, human. Either you are the bravest being I have ever met, or the most foolish. Very well. I accept your challenge. You have one solar cycle. My communications officer will give you access to our networks. When you fail, I will make sure your suffering serves as an example to the galaxy. He gestured to the guards. Take her to the communications center. Give her whatever she needs. In 24 hours, we will see what this mighty pen can accomplish against the power of the Vorthak Empire. As the guards led her away, Hana heard the Emperor's laughter echoing through the throne room. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The pen felt warm in her hand. Soon, the whole galaxy would understand its true power. The communication center was a massive room filled with glowing screens and humming machines. Cables ran across the ceiling like metal vines. The air smelled of ozone and hot electronics. This was the beating heart of the Vorthak Empire's information. Network.communications. Officer Zelak watched Hana with suspicious eyes. He was smaller than the Emperor, but still twice her size. His skin was green and covered in scales. Human, you have access to our basic networks. Do not attempt anything foolish. I am watching every signal you send. Hana sat down at the workstation they had given her. The chair was too big. The controls were meant for clawed hands. But she could manage. She placed her pen on the metal desk next to the keyboard. Thank you, Officer Zelak. I only need to write some messages. Write messages? Zelak's voice was confused. You challenge the Emperor to create chaos with a pen, and you want to write messages. Yes. This makes no sense. Messages are for communication, for sending information. They cannot destroy anything. Hana picked up her pen and began to write on a piece of paper. You are wrong about that. Across the Empire, people were going about their normal lives. On the mining world of Kepler-7, workers dug for rare metals under the harsh light of twin suns. In the factories of New Vorthak, machines built weapons for the endless wars. On colony ships traveling between stars, families dreamed of better lives. None of them knew that everything was about to change. In a hidden apartment on the capital world, Captain Jun Kim received a coded message on his personal communicator. He was tall for a human, with quick hands and careful eyes. For 2 years, he had led the resistance cell that gathered information about the Empire's crimes. The message was simple. "The pen writes tonight. Prepare the ink." Jun smiled for the first time in months. He activated his secure network and sent messages to 30 other cells across the Empire. Each message looked like ordinary business communication. Orders for supplies, reports about weather, complaints about work schedules, but hidden in the words was a different message. Operation Truth begins now. Dr. Yoon Lee sat in her small laboratory on Research Station Beta 9. She was the best language expert humanity had ever produced. She could speak 47 alien languages and read 12 different writing systems. For 3 years, she had studied every piece of Vorthak communication the Resistance could steal. Her job tonight was simple but crucial. Take Hana's words and translate them into every language in the Empire. Make sure the truth could reach every species, every colony, every mind. She received the first file from Hana and began to work. Her fingers flew across multiple keyboards as she prepared versions in Altarian, Keplerese, Old Vorthak, New Colonial, and dozens of other tongues. Back in the communications center, Hana finished her first message. It was not what anyone expected. No battle plans, no weapon designs, no secret codes, just words on a page. She began typing it into the network. "Officer Zelak," she said without looking up. "Do you remember General Tae Sung?" Zelak's scales changed color slightly. In Vorthak body language, this meant surprise. "Of course. He was a great hero, died in battle against the rebellion of Sector 12. Every citizen knows this story. He was murdered." The typing sounds in the room stopped. Other communication officers turned to look. Zelak's scales went from green to dark blue, which meant anger. "That is a lie. General Tae Sung died fighting bravely. There are official records. Video documentation. Witness reports." Hana kept typing. "He was poisoned at a dinner party. Emperor Gulthak ordered it because the general was becoming too popular with the common soldiers. The emperor was afraid Tae Sung might challenge his rule." "You cannot prove such nonsense." "Can't I?" Hana looked up from her screen. "Your empire keeps excellent records, Officer Zelak. Medical files, security reports, financial transactions. The poison came from the Imperial Pharmacy. The doctor who signed the death certificate received a large payment the next day. The general's family was sent to a luxury resort that doesn't exist." She turned her screen so Zelak could see. File after file of evidence. Documents stolen by the Resistance over years of careful work. Photos of the real resort where the general's family had died. Audio recordings of the emperor giving the murder order. Zelak stared at the screen. His scales shifted through several colors. This cannot be real." "It's all real, and in 5 minutes, every citizen in your empire will know the truth about their beloved hero." Hana pressed a button. The first message began spreading through the network. Dr. Yoon Lee's. Translations followed seconds later. Within minutes, the story was traveling to every corner of the empire. On the mining world of Kepler 7, workers stopped their digging to read the message on their work terminals. General Tae Sung had been their hero. Many had joined the Imperial Army because of stories about his bravery. Now they learned it was all a lie. In the factories of New Vorthak, assembly lines slowed as workers shared the news. The general's death had been used to justify increased military spending, higher taxes, longer work hours, all based on a murder the emperor had ordered. On the colony ships, families gathered around communication screens. They had named their children after the general. They had taught their sons to be brave like Tai Sung. Now they discovered their hero had died begging for his life as poison burned through his body. But Hana was not finished. She began typing her second message. Officer Zelak, what do you know about the evacuation of planet Zerion? This time, Zelak said nothing. His scales had turned completely black. The official story says the population was relocated for their own safety. A solar storm was coming. The Empire saved everyone by moving them to better worlds. Very kind and generous. Hana's fingers moved across the keyboard. The real story is different. The planet had huge deposits of dilithium crystals. The Emperor wanted them, but the local population would not agree to mining contracts, so he ordered them all killed. More files appeared on her screen. Satellite photos of mass graves, communications between Imperial commanders planning the massacre, financial records showing payments to cover up the crime. 3 billion beings died on Zerion, Hana continued. Men, women, children, they were not evacuated. They were murdered. Their bodies were burned and their cities were destroyed. Then the Empire sent in mining crews to dig up the crystals. The second message began spreading through the network. Across the Empire, people read the truth about Zerion. Many of them had friends or family who had supposedly been relocated to safety. Now they knew those loved ones were dead. Officer Zelak was backing away from Hana's workstation. "Stop this," he whispered. "You do not understand what you are doing." "I understand perfectly." Hana was already working on her third message. "I am showing your people the truth about their emperor, about their empire, about the lies they have lived their whole lives. You will destroy everything." "No," Hana said, looking up from her screen. "I will set everything free." More messages followed. The truth about the destroyed temples on Altair Prime. The reality behind the voluntary integration programs. The facts about the Emperor's secret police and their torture chambers. Each message was like a small bomb exploding in the minds of the Empire's citizens. Each truth destroyed another lie that held the system together. In her hidden laboratory, Dr. Yun Li worked faster than she ever had before. The messages needed to reach everyone in every language before the Emperor could stop them. On his secret network, Captain Jun Kim coordinated the resistance cells. They began spreading the messages through underground channels, making sure the truth reached places the Empire could not control, and in the communication center, Hana Park continued to write. Her simple black pen moved across piece after piece of paper, creating words that would change the galaxy forever. The revolution had begun. 6 hours after Hana began writing, the first riots started. On the factory world of Mechanus 4, 10,000 workers walked out of the weapons plants. They had just learned that their sons and daughters, supposedly killed fighting rebels, had actually died in the Emperor's private gladiator games. The young people had been kidnapped and forced to fight for the Emperor's entertainment. The factory supervisors tried to stop the workers, but it was too late. The truth was spreading faster than wildfire. Every worker had a communicator. Every communicator was sharing the messages. Within an hour, every factory on the planet had gone silent. In the communications center, Officer Zelak watched his screens with growing fear. Red warning lights flashed across his control panels. Reports of unrest were coming in from dozens of worlds. His superior officers were demanding explanations he could not give. "Human," he said to Hana, "you must stop this. The Empire is becoming unstable." Hana did not look up from her writing. The Empire was always unstable. It was built on lies. Now people are learning the truth. She finished another message and began typing it into the system. This one was about the planet Kepler 7, where most of the communication center's staff had family. "Do you have relatives on Kepler 7, Officer Zelak?" His scales turned pale green. "My sister lives there. Her children work in the mines." "Then you should know what really happened to the previous mining crews." Hana's message contained photos and documents that made Zelak sick to look at. The mining operations on Kepler 7 were not just extracting metals, they were using the workers themselves as raw materials. The rare elements the Empire needed were found in living bone and blood. When mining crews became too old or sick to work, they were not retired. They were fed into the processing machines along with the ore. The Empire had been literally grinding up its own citizens to feed its war machine. This cannot be true, Zalak whispered. Call your sister, Hana said, quietly. Ask her about the workers who disappear. Ask her why the mining quotas keep going up, but the number of miners stays the same. Zelak's hands shook as he activated his personal communicator. The call to Kepler-7 took several minutes to connect. When his sister's face appeared on the screen, she was crying. Zalak! Have you seen the messages? Is it true? Are they really doing that to us? Through the communicator, Zalak could hear explosions in the background, angry voices, the sound of buildings being destroyed. Sister, get somewhere safe. Lock your doors. Safe? There is nowhere safe. The miners have taken over the processing plants. They are destroying everything. They say if the Empire wants to grind us up, they will grind the Empire up first. The call ended suddenly. Zalak stared at the blank screen. Around him, other communication officers were getting similar calls from their families. The truth was, spreading everywhere and everywhere it went, it left chaos behind. But Hana was not satisfied with chaos. She wanted justice. Her next message was different. Instead of revealing crimes, she began to reveal weaknesses. Secret information about the Emperor's fears, his failures, his moments of cowardice that had been covered up by propaganda. Intelligence. Officer Wei Moon had spent 3 years collecting this information. He worked in the Imperial archives, copying files that were supposed to be destroyed. Every embarrassing moment, every time the Emperor had run from battle, every decision made from fear instead of strength. The message told the story of the battle, of Proxima Nebula, where the Emperor had abandoned his own troops to save himself. Official records said he was performing a strategic withdrawal. The truth was that he had fled in terror when the enemy ships appeared, leaving 50,000 soldiers to die. It told about the Emperor's private medical files. The galaxy believed Gulthak was immortal, that his strength came from superior Vorthak genetics. In reality, he was dying slowly from a rare disease. His body was kept alive by machines hidden inside his armor. His legendary strength came from mechanical exoskeletons, not natural power. Most damaging of all, the message revealed that the Emperor's famous victory against the Centauri Republic had been won through treachery, not courage. He had pretended to negotiate peace while secretly poisoning the Centauri leadership. Billions of beings across the galaxy had been taught to respect this victory as proof of Vorthak superiority. As this message spread through the networks, something changed in the tone of the riots. The anger became more focused. People were not just destroying things randomly anymore. They were targeting symbols of imperial power. On New Vorthak, crowds surrounded the statue of Emperor Gulthak in the central plaza. Instead of tearing it down immediately, they covered it with messages, lists of his crimes, photos of his victims, evidence of his cowardice. Then they broadcast images of the covered statue across the empire. Engineer Bo Han made sure those images reached every screen in the galaxy. He controlled the entertainment networks from his position in the media center. Every show, every news program, every advertisement was interrupted by the truth about their emperor. Children watching their favorite programs saw pictures of mass graves. Families enjoying dinner saw documents proving their heroes were murderers. Workers relaxing after long shifts learned that their emperor was not the immortal god-king they had been taught to worship, but a sick, frightened old creature kept alive by machines. In the throne room, Emperor Gulthak was no longer laughing. What is happening? He roared at his generals. Why are my worlds in rebellion? Why are my factories silent? Why are my citizens destroying my statues? General Vex tried to explain. Your Majesty, Someone is spreading lies about the Empire, false information designed to create unrest. Then stop it. We have tried, but the messages are coming from our own communication networks. They appear to be authorized transmissions. Our people believe them because they come through official channels. Admiral Gornek stepped forward. Your Majesty, we could shut down all communications, stop the flow of information completely. And how would I command my fleets? How would I control my empire? An emperor who cannot communicate with his subjects is no emperor at all. Commander Thork had been studying the reports. Your Majesty, these messages, they contain classified information, military secrets, personal files. Someone has been inside our systems for years. Impossible. Our security is perfect. The human female, General Vex said slowly. She said her pen was her weapon. She said it could create chaos. This chaos began when she started writing. Emperor Gulthak's eyes glowed brighter. Bring her to me, now. But when the guards went to the communication center, they found it surrounded by rioting citizens. Officer Zelak and his staff had joined the rebels. They were using the Empire's own equipment to spread Hana's messages even faster. Hana herself was still writing. Her pen moved steadily across page after page. Each page became another message. Each message became another crack in the Empire's foundation. She had written about the crimes. She had written about the lies. She had written about the weaknesses and fears. Now she began to write about hope. Her new messages were different. They were not just about what was wrong with the Empire. They were about what could be built in its place. She wrote about worlds where people chose their own leaders. She wrote about societies based on cooperation instead of conquest. She wrote about the possibility of peace. These messages spread just as quickly as the others, but they had a different effect. Instead of just destroying, people began to build. Instead of just rebelling, they began to organize. Instead of just fighting against something, they began to fight for something. On 17 worlds, new governments formed in a single day. Local leaders who had been secretly planning for years suddenly found themselves with popular support. Citizens who had never dared to speak against the Empire were volunteering to help create something better. The revolution was no longer just about destroying the old system. It was about building a new one. And at the center of it all, Hana Park continued to write. Her simple black pen was rewriting the destiny of the galaxy, one word at a time. The Emperor's empire was crumbling. But something new was being born in its place. 12 hours into Hana's writing, half the Empire was in open revolt. Commander Yuki Nam stood on the bridge of the battleship Altair's Pride, watching her home world burn in the distance. Not from enemy weapons, but from the fires of revolution. Her people, the Altarians, had been peacefully integrated into the Empire 50 years ago. They had been told their ancient temples were accidentally destroyed during construction projects. Now they knew the truth. The temples had been deliberately targeted and demolished because they contained records of Altarian democracy. The Empire could not allow people to remember that other forms of government were possible. Commander, her communications officer reported, we are receiving messages from Admiral Su Kang. The entire 7th Fleet is requesting permission to break from Imperial command. Yuki looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Imperial ships. Blue dots showed rebel forces. But increasingly, the red dots were changing to green as Imperial units switched sides or simply disappeared from the network. Send a message to Admiral Kang, Yuki decided. The Altarian Defense Force formally withdraws from the Vorthak Empire. We will defend our home and help others do the same. The Altarian temples had been destroyed, but their ideas lived on in the hearts of their people. Democracy, freedom, the right to choose their own path. These concepts were spreading through the galaxy faster than any fleet. Captain Hojin faced a similar choice aboard his destroyer Iron Fist. His family had been relocated to a paradise world when he joined the Imperial Navy. For 15 years, he had served faithfully, believing his wife and children were living in comfort while he protected the Empire. Hana's messages had revealed the truth. There was no paradise world. Families of military officers were held in prison camps as insurance against rebellion. If an officer ever turned against the Empire, their loved ones would be executed. "Captain," his weapons officer said quietly. "Long-range sensors detect movement at prison station Omega-7. Multiple ships approaching." Ho Jin studied the sensor readings. Prison station Omega-7 was where his family was being held. The approaching ships were Imperial reinforcements sent to prevent any rescue attempts. "All hands, this is the captain," Ho Jin announced over the ship's communication system. "We have served the Empire faithfully for years. We believed we were protecting peace and order. Now we know we were protecting lies and murder. Today we choose a different path." The Iron Fist changed course toward prison station Omega-7. Within an hour, 12 other ships had joined them. Imperial officers who had discovered their families were prisoners, not honored guests. The rescue fleet grew as it traveled. Word spread through the military networks that families were being freed. More ships broke from their assigned positions to join the mission. By the time they reached the prison station, 47 vessels were flying in formation. The battle was brief. The station's defenses had been designed to keep prisoners in, not to fight a fleet. Within minutes, the rescue ships were docking and breaking open the prison cells. Ho Jin found his wife and children in a cell meant for 4 people but holding 12. They were thin and weak, but alive. His youngest daughter, now 10 years old, barely remembered him. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Are you really here?" "I'm here," he said, holding her close. "And I'm never leaving you again." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as the truth spread. The Empire's control was based on fear, lies, and hostages. Once people learned the truth, that control began to collapse. In the Imperial capital, Emperor Gulthak's inner circle was falling apart. Admiral Su Kang stood in the war room, staring at the strategic display. Red symbols showed loyal forces. They were disappearing one by one. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "we need to discuss our options." "There are no options," Gulthak snarled. "We crush this rebellion like all the others." "This is not like the others," Admiral Kang replied. "Previous rebellions were about military force. This one is about ideas. You cannot bomb an idea. You cannot arrest a thought. The humans have weaponized truth itself." General Vex disagreed. "We can still win. Order orbital bombardments of the rebel worlds. Kill enough of them, and the rest will remember their place." "And destroy our own industrial capacity?" Admiral Kang shook her head. "Those worlds produce the ships and weapons we need. Destroying them would be destroying ourselves." "Then what do you suggest?" the Emperor demanded. "Negotiate, offer reforms, give people some of what they want before they take everything." Gulthak's roar shook the room. "I do not negotiate with rebels. I am the Emperor. I am the master of the galaxy." "Your Majesty," Admiral Kang said quietly. "With respect, if you are the master of the galaxy, why is half of it in revolt?" The Emperor's claws extended. For a moment, it looked like he might attack his own admiral. But then the communication alarms began sounding. More reports of ships defecting. More worlds declaring independence. More Imperial governors fleeing their posts. "Find the human female," Gulthak ordered. "Bring her to me. This ends now." But finding Hana was no longer simple. The communication center was under the control of rebel forces. Officer Zelak, who had started the day as a loyal Imperial servant, was now coordinating the revolution's information network. Journalist Mi Young had arrived with a team of rebel fighters. She was small even for a human, but her eyes burned with determination. For 3 years, she had documented Imperial war crimes from hidden bases. Now she was helping spread those documents to every corner of the galaxy. "How much longer do you need?" she asked Hana. Hana looked at her list. She had exposed the major crimes. She had revealed the Emperor's weaknesses. She had inspired people to rebel. But there was one more thing she needed to do. 6 more hours, Hana said. I need to write his biography. His biography? Everything. His real history. Not the propaganda version, but the truth. Every crime, every lie, every moment of cowardice. When people understand who he really is, they will never follow him again. Mi Young nodded. We can hold this position for 6 hours. Maybe longer if Captain Jun's forces link up with us. Across the capital city, Captain Jun Kim was leading a group of resistance fighters through the underground tunnels. They had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. Hidden weapons caches, secret communication networks, safe houses for rebels and their families. The Imperial Guard is mobilizing, one of his fighters reported. They are trying to reach the communication center. Let them come, Jun replied. We know these tunnels better than they do, and we have something they don't. What's that? We know we're fighting for the truth. The Imperial Guard was indeed mobilizing, but they were facing an unexpected problem. Many of their own soldiers were reading Hana's messages and beginning to question their loyalty. Guard Captain Jin Su had discovered that his entire home world had been sterilized to prevent a plague outbreak that never existed. Millions of his people had died for nothing. Now he stood in the armory, looking at the weapons that were supposed to crush the rebellion. But how could he use them against people fighting for the truth? Captain, one of his sergeants said, the men are asking questions about the messages, about our families, about what we're really fighting for. Jin Su made his decision. Tell the men to stand down. We will not attack the communication center. Sir, you heard me. Pass the word quietly. Any soldier who wants to leave can go. Any who want to stay can help protect the civilians. Within an hour, half the Imperial Guard had laid down their weapons. The other half was split between those who remained loyal to the Emperor and those who simply did not know what to believe anymore. The Empire was not just losing territory. It was losing the loyalty of its own people. In the communication center, Hana continued writing. Her biography of Emperor Gulthak was becoming the most damaging document in galactic history. Every page revealed new crimes, every paragraph destroyed. Another myth about Vorthak's superiority. She wrote about his childhood when he had tortured small animals for pleasure. She wrote about his rise to power, built on the murders of his own family members. She wrote about his wars, fought not for glory or defense, but to feed his hunger for suffering. Most importantly, she wrote about his fears, his terror of death, his panic when faced with real opposition, his desperate need to be worshipped because he knew he was not worthy of respect. When people understand who he really is, Hana said to Mi Young, they will see that he is not a god emperor. He is just a frightened, angry creature who has never grown beyond the cruel child he once was. The biography was almost finished. Soon the galaxy would know the complete truth about Emperor Gulthak, and once they knew, there would be no going back. The fire of revolution was spreading. Soon it would consume everything the Empire had built on lies. 18 hours after the challenge began, Emperor Gulthak made his final desperate move. Burn them all, he commanded from his crumbling throne room. Every rebel world, every defiant ship, every citizen who has read these lies, turn them to ash. General Vex hesitated. Your Majesty, that would mean destroying 60% of the Empire, our own infrastructure, our own people. They are not our people anymore. Gulthak's voice cracked with rage and fear. They are infected with human poison. They believe human lies. Better to rule ash than to rule nothing. Admiral Su Kang stepped backward. She had served the Empire for 30 years, but this was too much. Your Majesty, I cannot carry out that order. You refuse me? I refuse to commit genocide against our own citizens. Gulthak's claws extended. Then you are a traitor, like the rest. The Emperor's personal guards moved toward Admiral Kang, but they moved slowly. They had been reading the messages, too. They knew about the prison camps, about the murdered families, about the lies they had spent their lives protecting. Guard Captain Jin Su appeared in the throne room doorway. His armor was scratched and dirty from the fighting in the capital. Behind him stood a squad of rebel soldiers and several of his own men who had switched sides. "Your Majesty," Jin Su said formally, "I have come to escort you to safety." "Safety?" Gulthak laughed bitterly. "There is no safety. The humans have destroyed everything. Their words have poisoned the galaxy. The humans have told the truth, that is all. Truth is what I say it is. I am the Emperor." Jin Su looked around the throne room. The weapon trophies still hung on the walls, but they looked different now. Not symbols of power, but reminders of murdered worlds. The red crystals still glowed, but their light seemed cold and hostile. "Your Majesty," Jin Su said quietly, "your empire is gone. 3/4 of your fleet has defected. Your worlds are declaring independence. Your own capital is in rebel hands. It is over." "It is not over." Gulthak stood up from his throne. Even now, he was terrifying. 12 feet of rage and desperation. "I still have the Imperial Core fleet. I still have the planet killers. I will destroy every world that defies me and rebuild the Empire from the survivors." But as he spoke, new reports were coming in. The Imperial Core fleet was no longer responding to commands. The planet killer ships had been taken over by their own crews. Even his most elite forces had turned against him. Rebel leader Hyun Woo had spent the last 6 hours coordinating the takeover of the military infrastructure. He was a former Imperial engineer who had escaped after discovering his designs were being used for genocide rather than defense. He knew exactly which systems to target. The key was not fighting the ships, he explained to his team. The key was talking to the people inside them. Once they understood what they were really being asked to do, most of them refused. Scientist Yoon had contributed by showing the crews how to disable their ship's loyalty programming. The Empire had built mechanical systems to prevent mutiny, but she had found ways around them using simple electronic principles. "Every system has weaknesses," she had told the rebel technicians. "The Emperor's machines are very complex, but complexity creates vulnerabilities. A simple wire cutter can sometimes do what a plasma cannon cannot." Now, across the galaxy, Imperial ships were either joining the rebellion or simply shutting down their weapons and declaring neutrality. The Emperor's war machine was dismantling itself. In the communications center, Hana was finishing the final pages of Emperor Gulthak's biography. The last section was the most personal, his private moments when he thought no one was watching, his conversations with himself in his empty chambers, his desperate attempts to convince himself that he was truly the god he pretended to be. "He talks to his reflection," Hana wrote. "He practices speeches to empty rooms. He rehearses being brave because he has never felt real courage. He builds monuments to himself because he knows no one else will remember him with love. He surrounds himself with weapons because he is the most frightened being in the galaxy." The biography was complete. The galaxy would soon know everything about their emperor. Not just his crimes, but his weaknesses. Not just his cruelty, but his cowardice. Not just his power, but his emptiness. Journalist Mi Young prepared to broadcast the biography through every network in the empire. "This will destroy him completely," she said. "Not just his government, but his reputation, his legacy. Everything he built will turn to dust." "Good," Hana replied. "Tyrants should not be remembered as heroes." The broadcast began. Across thousands of worlds, people learned the complete truth about Emperor Gulthak. They discovered that their god-emperor was actually a pathetic, frightened creature who had never earned anything through virtue or courage. The effect was immediate and devastating. The last loyal forces abandoned their posts. The remaining imperial governors fled their palaces. Even the emperor's personal servants left the throne room. Gulthak found himself alone for the first time in decades. No guards, no generals, no servants. Just him and the ghosts of the billions he had murdered. He tried to access his communication systems, but they had been taken over by the rebels. He tried to call his fleets, but they no longer answered. He tried to activate his automated defenses, but the rebels had turned them off. For the first time in his life, Emperor Gulthak was powerless. That was when Hana Park walked into the throne room. She was no longer in chains. Her simple clothes were wrinkled and stained from hours of writing, but she walked with quiet dignity. In her hand, she still carried her black pen. "Hello, Your Majesty," she said politely. "I have come to complete our bargain." Gulthak stared at her. You did this. You destroyed my empire with your pathetic human tricks." "I told the truth. That is all." "The truth?" Gulthak's laugh was broken and bitter. "What is truth? I conquered 1,000 worlds. I ruled billions of beings. I was the master of the galaxy. That was my truth." "You were never the master of anything," Hana replied. "You were a prisoner of your own fears and hatred. Your empire was built on lies, and lies cannot last forever." The emperor slumped back onto his throne. He looked smaller now, older. The Kate machines that kept him alive were making labored sounds. Without his servants to maintain them, they were beginning to fail. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you have a choice," Hana said. She held out her pen. "You can write your testament. Tell the galaxy who you really were. Not the propaganda version, but the truth. Let honesty be your final act." Gulthak stared at the pen. Such a simple thing. Such a small object. Yet it had destroyed everything he had built. "Why?" he whispered. "Why should I tell the truth now? What good would it do?" "Because," Hana said gently, "the truth is the only thing that can set you free. Even now, even after everything you have done." The throne room was silent except for the sound of failing machines and distant explosions as the last imperial strongholds fell to the rebels. Emperor Gulthak, ruler of half the galaxy, stared at a simple pen and faced the most important choice of his life, the choice between continuing his lies or finally embracing the truth. 24 hours after the challenge began, Emperor Gulthak reached for the pen. His massive clawed hand trembled as he took the simple writing instrument from Hana. It looked impossibly small in his grip. For a moment he just stared at it. "I do not know how to write truth," he said quietly. "I have spent so many years creating lies that I have forgotten what reality looks like." "Start with something simple," Hana suggested. "Start with your name. Your real name, not your title." Gulthak found a piece of paper on the floor near his throne. It was a report from one of his generals, covered with battle plans that no longer mattered. He turned it over and began to write on the blank side. "My name is Korvac," he wrote slowly. "I was born on a farm on the world of Vorthak Prime. My father grew vegetables. My mother made clothes. We were poor, but we were happy." The words came slowly at first. Decades of lies and propaganda had built walls around his memory. But as he continued writing, those walls began to crumble. "I was small for a Vorthak child. The other children called me weak. They said I would never amount to anything. I began to hate them. I began to hate everyone who was stronger than me." Hana sat down on the steps leading to the throne. She was exhausted from the long hours of writing, but she wanted to witness this moment. The most powerful being in the galaxy was finally telling the truth about himself. "I discovered I was good at lying," Gulthak continued. "I could make people believe things that were not true. I could make them fear me even though I was small. I learned that words could be weapons, just like you said. Outside the throne room, the sounds of celebration were growing louder. The capital city was free. The last Imperial loyalists had surrendered. People were dancing in the streets, singing songs of freedom that had been banned for generations. I joined the military because I thought it would make me strong, but I was still afraid. In my first battle, I hid behind my soldiers and let them die to protect me. Then I lied about what happened. I said I had fought bravely. People believed me. The Emperor's writing was getting faster now. Memories were flooding back, things he had buried under years of self-deception. Each lie made the next one easier. Each crime made me more desperate to hide what I had done. I began to believe my own propaganda. I convinced myself that I was special, that I deserved to rule, that everyone else was inferior. Captain Jun Kim appeared in the doorway of the throne room. He had his weapon ready, but he lowered it when he saw what was happening. The Emperor was not trying to escape or fight. He was just writing. "The truth is," Gulthak wrote, "I was never strong. I was never brave. I was never wise. I was just a frightened child who learned to hurt others before they could hurt me. Every world I conquered was an attempt to prove I was not weak. Every being I killed was revenge against those who had called me small." More people began to gather in the throne room. Admiral Su Kang, who had defected with most of the fleet. Rebel leader Hyun Woo, who had coordinated the military uprising. Journalist Mi Young, who would make sure this testament reached every corner of the galaxy. I destroyed billions of lives because I could not accept the truth about myself. I built an empire on fear because I was the most afraid being in the galaxy. I demanded worship because I knew I was unworthy of love. Gulthak's hand was shaking more now. The pen was getting heavier, but he kept writing. If I could change the past, I would. If I could bring back the dead, I would. If I could undo the pain I have caused, I would trade my life for it gladly. But I cannot. The only thing I can do is tell the truth about what I was and hope that others will learn from my mistakes. The life support systems in his armor were failing. Without his servants to maintain them, the Emperor was slowly dying. But he ignored the pain and continued writing. "To all the families I destroyed, I am sorry. To all the worlds I burned, I am sorry. To all the beings who suffered because of my fears and hatred, I am sorry. These words cannot heal your wounds, but they are the only gift I have left to give." He set down the pen and looked at Hana. "Is this enough? Is this what you wanted?" "It's not what I wanted," Hana replied. "It's what you needed to do, for yourself and for the galaxy." Gulthak nodded slowly. "What will happen to me now?" "That is for others to decide. But you have already chosen the most important thing. You chose truth over lies. You chose honesty over pride. That is more than many tyrants have ever managed." The Emperor's breathing was becoming labored. His life support systems were nearly gone. But there was something different in his eyes now. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Relief. "I am dying," he said simply. "The machines that kept me alive are failing. I think I am ready." "Are you afraid?" Hana asked. "Yes. But for the first time in my life, I am not afraid of being weak. I am not afraid of being small. I'm afraid of what comes after death, but that is a different kind of fear. A more honest one." Captain Jun Kim stepped forward. "Your Majesty, our medical teams could help. We could try to repair your life support." Gulthak shook his head. "No. I have lived too long already. I have done too much damage. Let my death be the one good thing I do for the galaxy." He picked up the pen one last time and added a final line to his testament. "Let my empire die with me. Let something better take its place." The pen fell from his claws. Emperor Gulthak, ruler of half the galaxy, closed his eyes and died as he had lived his final hour, telling the truth. The throne room was silent for several minutes. Then journalist Mi Young carefully picked up the testament and began photographing each page. "This will be broadcast across the galaxy," she said. "Everyone will know what happened here. Everyone will know that even the worst tyrant in history could choose redemption in the end." Dr. Yoon Lee began translating the testament into every language she knew. Within hours, beings across the galaxy would be reading the Emperor's final words. Engineer Bo Han prepared the communication networks to carry this last message. The truth about Gulthak's death would spread just as quickly as the truth about his crimes. But Hana was already thinking about what came next. The Empire was gone, but something new had to take its place. The galaxy needed hope, not just freedom from tyranny. 3 months later, Hana Park stood before the First Galactic Council. Representatives from 2,000 worlds had gathered to write a new constitution, not one based on conquest and fear, but on cooperation and truth. "We gather not as conquerors," she said, "but as partners, not as masters and slaves, but as equals seeking common ground." In her hand, she held the same black pen that had brought down an empire. But now it would be used for a different purpose: to write laws that protected the weak, to create institutions that served justice, to build a future based on honesty instead of lies. "The greatest weapon in the universe," she told the assembled delegates, "is not built in factories or forged in fires. It is written in hearts, shared between minds, and passed from one generation to the next." She began to write the first words of the new Galactic Constitution. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all intelligent beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The words were old ones, written by humans centuries earlier, but they were eternal truths that applied to every species, every world, every being who had ever dreamed of freedom. The pen moved across the paper, creating words that would outlast empires and tyrants, words that would inspire future generations to choose truth over lies, courage over fear, hope over despair. And in the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not superior weapons or technology, but the understanding that the written word, guided by moral courage, could change everything. The empire of lies was dead. The age of truth had begun, and it started with a simple pen in the hands of someone brave enough to use it.